Hey everyone, it's Kenji. We're gonna make some Niku Udon. This is some Japanese beef noodles. Really, really simple, not many ingredients, especially if you use powdered dashi, which is what I'm using here. So I do have a recipe for dashi. You can find it on in the link down below. Oh, sorry, I'll open that door for you, Shabu. But this is powdered dashi, which comes in varying levels of quality. Come on, Shabu, come on in. Come on in. There you go. Comes in varying levels of quality. This one happens to be a kind of like fancier one that's made with bonito and anchovies and seaweed and all kinds of stuff. But you know, you can also use something like hondashi, which is probably like the sort of mass market, really run-of-the-mill stuff that is still great tasting. Or you can make your own dashi. Making your own dashi is very simple. And I will leave instructions below. Oh, the other thing you can do is they have these kind of dashi tea packets, which I frequently use when I'm out of them today, which is why I'm using this powdered stuff. So dashi, anyway, it's a Japanese stock. It's like the basis of most Japanese soups. In fact, this is the basis of pretty much all Japanese cooking. It's a stock made with kombu, which is giant sea kelp, and some sort of, usually the simplest one will be kombu and katsuobushi, which is dried, salted, smoked, fermented, and shaved bonito. So it's not saying you'd ever make it by yourself at home, but you buy it in these kind of flakes that look kind of like almost like like wood shavings. You can also buy it in, my grandmother used to buy it in solid blocks and then shave it herself, which is how people used to do it, but not a very common way to do it these days. All right, so I'm just going to let this dissolve, or mostly dissolve. It'll finish dissolving on its own. This is a very rich dashi stock that is going to be quite tasty. But this is sort of the basis of the soup. All right, got right here. I have like 3.5, maybe 4 cups of dashi, and to that I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of mirin, which is a Japanese sweet cooking wine, and a couple tablespoons of soy sauce. And we'll taste that. And depending on the type of dashi you use, you might need to add a little extra salt, but this one is plenty salty on its own. All right, so I'm just gonna put it on the back burner and let it hang out. This pot's gonna be for my noodles. All right, there's my soup base. Here's my noodles. Here's where I'm gonna cook my beef. So there are many different ways you can do this beef. Oh, this is an onion that was accidentally got frozen in this top of my fridge. Generally you don't want to cook with frozen vegetables because freezing, what happens is the expansion of the ice destroys vegetable cell walls, and so they turn all soft like this. But for a recipe like this, where we're cooking the onion down, essentially simmering it, I'm tossing this part because it was a little moldy, but essentially where we're cooking the onion down until it's very, very soft anyway, you can totally use a previously frozen onion, and it will not hurt the end results. This is an older onion. I'm going to trim away all these kind of slimy bits. This is a very fast recipe. I got to make it fast because my daughter has violin school in like 15 minutes. We got to leave the house in like 15 minutes. So I'm going to cook this fast, have it, and then we'll save the rest for dinner later. All right, so we got our onions. We got beef. This is thinly shaved ribeye that I bought at the Japanese market for sukiyaki. You can buy any meat that you would use for sukiyaki or shabu shabu or something like Korean barbecue, bulgogi. You can use that. You can use beef that you can buy, anywhere you buy beef for cheesesteaks, you can do that. But you do need to have this sort of thin sliced beef, which, depending on where you live, might be hard to come by. But if you live anywhere where they sell cheesesteak meat or meat for sukiyaki, like an Asian supermarket, you're in luck. And likewise, if you want to make cheesesteaks and you don't live in an area where that's common, but you do live near an Asian market, a Japanese or Korean market in particular, you can use the beef for sukiyaki and shabu shabu for cheesesteaks, and it's delicious. Or Italian beefs. You can do that too. All right, so some people brown their onions and beef before cooking. I don't. I've always made it this sort of simpler, simmered way. To me, this is a simmered dish. So all I'm doing is taking my meat and my onions, adding, I like to go pretty heavy on the sake, so I'm adding probably like half a cup or so of sake there. Some recipes will only call for a couple tablespoons. Couple tablespoons of mirin. Oh, that was about 3/4 of a pound of meat, by the way. That'll make like, 3 servings. And a couple tablespoons of soy sauce. And a couple tablespoons of sugar. And finally, some of that soup base. The dashi. And so now all we do is let this simmer. This, by the way, is the exact same way I would make something like Udon, so like Japanese beef noodle bowls. Oops. And the idea here is that the beef is going to cook pretty quickly, but it's totally fine for it to kind of get shredded up. That's like part of the experience. So it's this really thin sliced tender beef that will cook. Oh, hi Shabu. Yeah, go ahead. And cook really fast and then start to get tender. And some people like to cook it just until it's barely done. Generally, I like to actually cook it longer, like till it almost sort of starts to fall apart. So if I have time, I would actually let this simmer down for probably half an hour or so. But today I'll probably only let it simmer for about 10 minutes because I got that violin lesson to go to. All right. The only other ingredients here, udon noodles. These are fresh. You could also use dried or frozen. Frozen is probably the one I use most commonly, but I happen to see these fresh ones, so I bought some fresh ones. We'll take the scallion greens. I'm gonna slice them nice and thin this way. These will be my garnish greens. Oh, and here's a neat thing you can do. So when you slice scallions nice and thin like that, what you can do is then put them into a little bit of ice water and let them rest, and they get super curly and look nice. That's something I learned back when I worked at one of my very first restaurant jobs was at a pizza place in Harvard Square called Cambridge 1. If you're familiar with Miracle of Science, which is a bar by MIT that has been there for, 30 years, and is where many a startup was founded, if you believe the stories. But anyhow, that place is owned by a guy named Chris Lutz, who used to own a pizza place called Cambridge 1, which I think eventually closed down during the pandemic. But that was one of my first restaurant jobs, was making pizza there. And they used to top the pizzas at the end with these scallion hairs, which is how they did it at Al Forno in Providence, also the place where grilled pizza was supposedly invented. Yeah, they topped them with these scallion hairs. And so that's where I learned that trick of putting scallions in ice water to get them to get all nice and curly. So if you've ever been to like a, you won't see that just at, obviously not just at Cambridge 1 or in sushi bowls, but if you go to like sushi places, Niku Udon bowls. But if you go to sushi places, sometimes you'll see salads with scallion hairs or certain rolls that have scallion hairs in them, and that's how they do it. All right, enough blathering about scallions. I'm not going to bore you and make you watch this come to a simmer and simmer down. So I will just be back in a few minutes. But my kid just woke up, and so I got to take care of him before I take my daughter to music class. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shut this off, shut it off, just lit everything, shut it all off, and I will finish this later on this evening when we get back home. So, yeah, the realities of real life. All right, I'll see you in a little while. I'll be back in a couple days, actually. So, as it turns out, yesterday we had to, not yesterday, the day before yesterday, had to leave a little quicker than I thought to get to my daughter's gymnastics class. And then, so I didn't get to finish cooking this and eating it that day, but basically all I've done is simmered down the beef until it looks like this. So it was probably a total of about 10 minutes longer. And then I stuck it in the fridge. And now this is 2 days later and we are reheating it for dinner. So I have the same things going. I got a pot of water. I got my stock that was also in the fridge for a couple nights. And the beef is pretty much ready, so we just have to cook our noodles. So these are fresh udon noodles. If you can't find fresh, you should look for frozen. And if you can't find frozen, you can use dried. If you can't find any kind of udon, just use spaghetti. You know? No one will stop you. But udon are a sort of thick Japanese wheat noodle. They come in various thicknesses. You can also make them yourself, of course. Oh, I forgot to mention, I think I forgot to mention, it was 2 days ago, so I don't know. But if you don't have sake, or, you know, for any reason you don't keep alcohol in the house or cook with alcohol, you can just use water for this, and it'll taste just fine. That soy and dashi combination is still going to taste really good. So instead of sake and mirin, use just the sugar. Maybe add a little bit of extra sugar to compensate for the sweetness of the mirin, but otherwise, yeah, soy and dashi will do you just fine. All right, so these noodles just take a couple minutes to cook. In the meantime, I'm going to get my bowls ready. So we're going to take our broth. This is enough. I'm making like 2 servings here. Try one. I don't even know why I'm bothering with the ladle. Here, do that. And we'll just grab it. Huh? And if you've ever had been to like a Yoshinoya, which is a Japanese fast food chain, the beef mixture that they put on top of their gyudon, their beef rice bowls, is essentially the same as this. So you could put this on top of rice instead of noodles, and that would be completely appropriate and completely delicious. Bring some of those clumps of noodles up. In the summertime, I mean, it is the summertime, I guess, technically right now, but earlier in the summer, when it was really hot, what I like to do is serve these cold. So you take the noodles, chill them, dump them into an ice bath when you're done cooking them, and then you can serve this all cold. All right, noodles are done. Let's bring them. Bring them right over here. So we can get about half of them. Okay. If you want to make those noodles look pretty, what you can do is pick up a bunch of them in your chopsticks like this, give them a little shake so they kind of lay flat, and then drape them that way, and drape them back across, and then you get like a nice little bed of aligned noodles there. Of course, I'm not so great at this. People who do this every day are much better. But you get a nice little bed of aligned noodles so that your beef can sort of sit on top without sinking in too much. Okay, so we'll go in with our beef mixture. I think that's enough for each bowl. I'll save the rest for my daughter's lunch sometime or something like that. Oh, and then here are those scallions that have also been in the fridge for a couple nights, but you can see how they got all nice and curled up. And what I like to do is toss them down. Anytime I have like herbs in water or something before I put them on the plate, I toss them down just to shake off the excess water. And there we go. Togarashi. This is a Japanese 7-spice powder. It's got like chilies, sesame seeds, orange peel, a few different aromatics, coriander seed, I think. All right. Let's go ahead and taste this. Lovely light broth. Oh boy, that's tasty. There you go. Yeah, it's got that kind of classic Japanese sweet, savory profile, like tons of umami from the dashi. All right, that one's for my wife. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, Japanese beef noodles, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.